After weeks of driving Mr. Jones out, life on the farm continued in a quietly eager manner. The animals were busy with their work, believing that the days of danger were over. But in the neighboring villages, neither Jones nor the other farmers found peace. They would sometimes gather in taverns, speaking anxiously about this animal farm, ruled by cows, horses, and pigs, afraid that the contagion of rebellion might spread to their own farms. It was not out of love for Jones, but out of fear for their own property. On a cloudy morning, Jones decided to reclaim his farm by force. He came with 5 or 6 men, some carrying guns, others sticks. They advanced toward the iron gate, opened it, and entered, thinking the task would be easy. But Snowball was not unaware. In the past days, he had been reading old books he found in the house, books about Julius Caesar's campaigns and battle strategies, and he had prepared a careful tactic for defense. When the crows and pigeons raised their alarm cries, the animals hurried to their positions just as Snowball had planned. First, the birds swooped in a bewildering attack on the men, who began waving their sticks and shouting. Then the sheep and goats rushed forward, striking with their bodies, slightly scattering the men's lines. When the men thought it was merely chaotic resistance, they advanced more boldly into the farmyard, only to fall into the trap. Suddenly, Boxer came charging out from behind the barn, massive and powerful, running at full force, and struck with his front hooves, knocking a man to the ground. Snowball was beside him, personally leading the assault, rushing between the men's legs, pushing and butting them with his shoulders. Snowball took a light shot in the back, some of his fur flying off, but he did not retreat. Within minutes, panic spread through the attackers' hearts, and they shouted and retreated, chased by the dogs and pigeons all the way beyond the fence. Shortly after, the animals returned to the farmyard. Boxer noticed that the man he had struck lay there for a while, so he stood by him, whispering anxiously, "I didn't mean to kill him. I forgot how strong I am." The man actually stirred and breathed afterward, which relieved Boxer a little. Then all gathered in a small celebration, where they pinned the medal of Animal Hero First Class on Snowball's chest in honor of his wounds and leadership, and also on Boxer's chest for his strength that had decided the battle. The anthem Beasts of England was sung again in loud voices, and joy spread over their tired faces. Thus ended the day that would later be called the Battle of the Cowshed, added to the farm's history as a great day of victory, though none knew that this triumph would later cast long shadows. This chapter of Animal Farm reveals to us the other face of revolutions, the stage of armed defense of the new system against attempts to return to the past. The Battle of the Cowshed was not merely a passing skirmish between humans and animals, but a pivotal moment that confirmed to the animals that their revolution was not just a pleasant dream, but a reality that needed blood to protect it. Here, George Orwell clearly hints at the stages that major revolutions went through, when the revolutionaries were forced to confront the old powers that sought to regain their privileges, just as the royal armies of Europe did against the revolutionary France, or the white coalition armies against the Bolsheviks in Russia after the fall of the Tsar. Snowball in this scene stood out remarkably. He planned the battle beforehand, read about Julius Caesar's strategies, led the attack himself until he was wounded, and later received the Medal of Heroism. He embodies the military revolutionary leader who does not content himself with ideas, but goes down to the field to fight, like Trotsky, who led the Red Army during the Russian Civil War. Meanwhile, Boxer once again revealed his nature, both kind and fearsome at the same time. So strong he inspired awe, yet the farthest from violence driven by malice. When he thought he had killed a man, his heart filled with remorse, and he said in simple horror, "I didn't mean to kill him. I forgot how strong I am." This single sentence sums up the tragedy of the working class, dragged by ideologies into conflicts, shedding blood they never truly desired. As for the humans, Mr. Jones and his neighbors, they represent the old class that does not accept its defeat. They gathered out of fear that the contagion of rebellion might reach their farms. Just as the European monarchies conspired against France after the Revolution, afraid the spark of freedom would extend to their own subjects. The attack was outwardly an attempt to reclaim their farm, but in reality it was a defense of a class system that had begun to wobble on the horizon. After the battle ended, the simple celebration was held and the anthems rose. Outwardly, the revolution had triumphed again, and the animals emerged more united and confident. But Orwell cleverly planted a warning sign amidst this victory. The blood that had stained the soil, the medals that were distributed, and the songs that rose to make them forget the violence. As if he was whispering to the reader, this is how revolutions begin, by justifying killing and fighting, only to later turn into permanent mechanisms of oppression under the pretext of protecting the revolution itself. In this way, Orwell ties the Battle of the Cowshed to all the civil wars and counter-revolutions throughout history, how peoples each time believe that their weapons are now for protecting their freedom and thus continue to raise them, without sometimes realizing that this very weapon may later turn into a tool in the hands of a new authority more dangerous than the one they overthrew. When the animals decided to defend their farm against the attack by Jones and the other farmers, they were in fact reenacting a scene from human history that had occurred only decades before Orwell wrote this novel. The Battle of the Cowshed is, in essence, nothing more than a literary image of a far greater and bloodier battle, the Russian Civil War that erupted after the October Revolution of 1917. Just as Mr. Jones gathered with his neighboring farmers, so did the old royal and noble forces in Russia, supported at times by British, French, and American aid, come together to form what became known as the White Army. They did not fight merely out of love for the Tsar, but out of fear that a successful workers' and peasants' revolution might spread to their own countries. They were exactly like Jones and his neighbors, afraid that the contagion of revolution would reach them and threaten their system of privileges. Meanwhile, inside the farm, the animals led by Snowball and Napoleon represented what the Red Army was in Russia, organized by Lenin and literally rebuilt by Trotsky from simple peasants. Snowball, who studied books on Julius Caesar, resembles Trotsky, who delved into classical military strategies to transform inexperienced peasants into a force capable of standing up to trained armies. When Snowball was shot in the back and later awarded a medal for bravery, it echoed the Red Banner medals the Bolsheviks awarded to heroes of the Red Army to inspire enthusiasm and solidify the legitimacy of the new regime. Even Boxer, the noble worker who nearly killed a man and then stood whispering awkwardly, "I didn't mean to kill him. I forgot how strong I am," reminds us of the millions of Russian peasants who suddenly found themselves at the heart of political battles they did not fully understand, fighting enemies they were told posed a threat to their newborn freedom. Thus, the Battle of the Cowshed was, at its core, nothing but an artistic reworking of the first true bloody test of the new system in Russia after the overthrow of the Tsar, a test that moved them from the dream of liberation to the reality of violence that, at least in that moment, seemed entirely justified to protect their revolution.